I was an active-duty Air Force intelligence officer holding a top-secret security clearance, and my mother actually thought calling 911 to report me as a suicidal threat was a smart way to force me to babysit my sister's kids. She thought the badge would scare me into submission. She had absolutely no idea that a police report triggers an automatic federal background check in my unit, a check that was about to uncover the $85,000 secret she and my sister had buried under my name. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was I had been back from a 6-month classified deployment for exactly 3 days, and my mother had already scheduled a mandatory Sunday dinner like I was still 12 and grounded. I should have skipped it. I knew better. But there's this thing about coming home from deployment. You tell yourself maybe things are different. Maybe people grew up. Maybe the distance fixed something. Yeah, no, I pulled up to my parents' house right on time. Same driveway, same trimmed hedges, same fake welcome mat that said, "Bless this mess," like it was a personality trait. I stepped inside and it hit me immediately. Not the smell, not the noise, the dynamic. Nothing had changed. My mom Valerie was at the head of the table like she was running a board meeting. Perfect hair, perfect smile, that tight look in her eyes that said she already decided how the night was going to go. And then there was Morgan, my older sister, pregnant, again, sitting there like she was the main event. 2 toddlers were running laps around the table. One had something sticky on his face. The other was screaming into a plastic toy like it was a microphone. Nobody corrected them. Morgan just laughed. "Kids, you're being so wild today," she said, smiling like it was cute. My mom laughed too. Of course she did. Golden child behavior gets applause in that house. I took a seat at the far end of the table. Safer distance, less direct fire. "Blair," my mom said without looking at me. "You're late," I checked my watch. I was not late. "I'm on time," I said. She finally looked at me. That quick dismissive glance. Well, in this house on time is early. "Right, of course it is." Morgan leaned forward like she'd been waiting. "Oh my God, Blair, you missed so much," she said. "I have huge news." I nodded once. "Okay." She sat up straighter, smiling, performing. "I'm quitting my job." Silence for half a second. Then my mom clapped. "Isn't that amazing?" she said. I blinked. "You just started that job." Morgan waved her hand like details didn't matter. "Yeah, but it's not aligned with my brand." "Of course it isn't. I'm focusing full-time on content," she continued. "Mom life, lifestyle, family. You know, building something real." I looked at her, then at the 2 toddlers trying to climb onto the table. "You already have something real," I said. "It's called 2 kids." She laughed like I made a joke. "That's exactly why I need to focus," she said. "This is a business." My mom nodded like she was listening to a CEO pitch. And Morgan added, placing a hand on her stomach, "With the new baby coming, it's just too much." There it was. I felt it before she even said it. The setup. "I'm going to need help," she said. "Of course you are." My mom leaned back in her chair, calm, confident. "We've already been discussing options," she said. "We? Not me. Not even pretending." I took a sip of water, bought myself a second. "What kind of help?" I asked, even though I already knew. Morgan smiled wider. "A full-time nanny," she said. "Live-in." I set the glass down slowly. "And how are you planning to pay for that?" I asked. Morgan didn't answer. She looked at my mom. My mom looked at me, and then she pointed, directly at me. "There's no need to pay for anything," she said. "We already have the perfect solution." I didn't move, didn't react, didn't give her anything. "You," she said. "You're going to help your sister." There it was. Out loud now, clear, simple, final. I leaned back in my chair. "I'm not a nanny," I said. My mom smiled like I said something cute. "You're her sister," she said. "That means something. It means I visit," I said. "It doesn't mean I move in." Morgan jumped in, already defensive. "Wow, okay, I didn't think you'd be like this." "Like what? Like this?" she repeated. "Selfish." I let that sit for a second. "Selfish is quitting your job with 3 kids and no plan," I said. My mom's smile disappeared. That was fast. "Watch your tone," she said. I looked at her. "No," I said. Silence dropped over the table. You could hear the kids in the other room now. Someone turned on a tablet, volume way too loud. My mom straightened in her chair. This was the part where she switched from suggestion to command. "Let me be very clear," she said. "You are single. You have no children. And you are wasting your life in a uniform when you could be supporting your family." There it was, the real issue. Not the kids, not the help. Control. "I serve in the Air Force," I said. "That's not wasting anything. She waved her hand again. You can take a leave of absence, she said. Or request a discharge. There are options. I stared at her. You want me to leave my career, I said slowly. Move into Morgan's basement and raise her kids for free. Yes, she said. No hesitation, no shame. Like she was asking me to pass the salt. Morgan nodded next to her. It would only be for a few years, she said, until things stabilize. A few years? I almost laughed. Instead, I pushed my chair back. Slow, controlled, I stood up. No yelling, no scene, just done. I picked up my napkin, folded it, set it on the table. I command a cyber intelligence unit, Mom, I said. I am not changing diapers so Morgan can film TikToks. Morgan scoffed. Wow. You think you're better than us. I looked at her. I think I made different choices, I said. My mom stood up too, voice sharper now. You will not walk out like this, she said. I picked up my keys. Watch me, I said. I walked to the door, didn't rush, didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear her voice rising. Fast, angry. This is exactly what I was talking about, she snapped. Disrespect, ungrateful, completely brainwashed by that military lifestyle. I opened the door and stepped outside. The air was cooler, quiet, finally. I walked to my car. My phone buzzed in my hand before I even reached it. Then again and again, I didn't check. Didn't need to. I already knew what was waiting for me. Guilt, anger, demands, same script, different day. I got in the car, started the engine. The phone kept buzzing. I flipped it over on the passenger seat and pulled out of the driveway. No music, no calls, just the road. And silence. I drove back to base housing like nothing happened. Like it was just another bad dinner. Like it would end there. I had no idea that my mother wasn't done. That she had already decided I wasn't going to say no. And that the next move she made wouldn't be a phone call. It would be a police report. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said no to your own family and suddenly you became the villain in a story you didn't even agree to be part of? Because if you have, you already know this doesn't end with one argument. Drop a comment below. And if you want more stories like this, real situations, real consequences, go ahead and subscribe. Trust me, this was just the warm-up. The pounding hit my door like someone was trying to break it down. I was awake before I even realized I had been asleep. 3:15 a.m. Dead quiet outside except for that heavy, steady knock. Not random, not drunk neighbor energy. Controlled. Intentional. My body went into autopilot. Years of training. I sat up, listened, checked the time again. Then the knock came again. Police. Open the door. Not military. That mattered. I got out of bed, pulled on a sweatshirt, and walked to the door without rushing. No panic, no hesitation. Just controlled movement. Another knock. Ma'am, we need you to open the door. I unlocked it and opened just enough to see 2 county officers standing there. Full uniform, flashlights, one slightly behind the other, both tense. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a routine stop. Can I help you? I asked. The lead officer stepped forward. Are you Blair Carter? Yes. He glanced at his partner, then back at me. Ma'am, we're here to conduct a welfare check. Of course you are. I opened the door wider. On what basis? I asked. He hesitated for half a second, like he already didn't like the answer he was about to give. We received a 911 call, he said, from a family member. They reported that you were experiencing severe emotional distress following a recent deployment. They stated you were unstable and had made threats to harm yourself. There it was, clean, direct, weaponized concern. I didn't react. Not externally. Internally, I was already putting the pieces together. Timing, motive, source, my mother. Of course it was her. She said this happened after a family dispute, the second officer added, watching me closely. We're required to verify your safety. Required. That word matters. Means they're doing their job. Doesn't mean I have to like why they're here. I stepped back and opened the door fully. Come in, I said. They exchanged a quick look, then stepped inside. I closed the door behind them. Do you have any weapons in the residence? The first officer asked. Yes, I said. Legally secured, locked, registered. I can show you. They nodded. Professional, careful, still tense. Good. They should be. I walked to the kitchen, flipped on the light, and kept my hands visible the entire time. No sudden movements, no attitude, just control. I'm going to grab my ID, I said. Go ahead, he replied. I pulled my military ID from my wallet and handed it over. He looked at it, then looked at me, then looked at it again. That's when the shift started. "You're active duty?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Air Force, intelligence." His partner stepped closer. "Rank lieutenant." They both went quiet for a second. That tension from earlier, it changed. Not gone, just redirected. I leaned against the counter, relaxed, but not casual. "I'm aware of the call you received," I said. "Let me clarify a few things." They listened. Good. "I returned from a 6-month deployment 3 days ago." I continued. "As part of my clearance, I undergo routine psychological evaluations every 90 days. I passed my last evaluation before redeployment. No flags, no concerns." The first officer nodded slowly. "I'm not experiencing distress," I said. "I'm not a threat to myself or anyone else." And I did not make any statements indicating otherwise. Silence. The second officer looked at the first, then back at me. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "your mother sounded very concerned." I almost smiled. "She was angry," I said. "There's a difference. That landed. You could see it. They've heard real panic before. Real emergencies, real fear. This didn't match." "What was the nature of the dispute?" the first officer asked. "Personal," I said, "and resolved. Not a lie. Not the full truth either. Didn't need to be." They both exhaled, slightly. The tension dropped another level. The first officer reached for his notepad, flipped a page, then stopped. He looked at me again. "You don't seem unstable," he said. "I'm not," I replied. He nodded. Then he sighed. That kind of sigh says I already know how this ends. He tore a page from the pad and handed it to me. "Here's the incident report number," he said, "for your records." I took it. "Thank you." He hesitated again, then shook his head almost to himself. "I'm going to be straight with you," he said. "Filing a false report like this, it's a misdemeanor. There it is, finally. Accountability." "My mother is aware of that?" I asked. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "She will be." His partner crossed his arms. "You might want to think about documenting everything," he added, "just in case this escalates." Too late, it already had. "I appreciate the advice," I said. They nodded, professional again. But now there was something else there. Disgust. Not at me, at the situation. They walked toward the door. I followed. "Sorry to wake you," the first officer said. "You're doing your job," I replied. He paused at the door. "Just be careful," he said. "Family stuff like this can get messy fast." I didn't respond to that, because I already knew. I opened the door, they stepped out. The porch light caught their faces for a second, then they were gone. The cruiser pulled away quietly. No sirens, no drama, just gone. I closed the door and locked it. Then I stood there, still, silent. The house felt different now, not unsafe, just exposed. I looked down at the paper in my hand. Incident report. Time stamp. 3:17 a.m. official. Documented. Real. And that's when it hit me. Not the call, not the accusation, the consequence. Any civilian police contact, any has to be reported up my chain of command. By 0800, no exceptions. I checked the time again. 3:22 a.m. That gave me less than 5 hours. 5 hours before this turns from a family issue into a federal one. Because once I report it, it doesn't stop at a conversation. It triggers a review. And when your job involves classified information review, doesn't mean a quick check. It means everything. Background, associations, financials. Every detail of your life gets pulled apart and laid out under a microscope. Not because they think you did something wrong, because they can't afford to be wrong about you. I walked back into the kitchen and set the report down on the counter. My phone buzzed again. I picked it up this time. 5 missed calls, 12 texts, all from my mother. I didn't open them, didn't need to. I already knew what they said. Control, pressure, justification. Same pattern, different method. I set the phone back down. Then I leaned both hands on the counter and stared at the wall. Slow breath in, slow breath out. Think, not react. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was procedural. And procedures don't care about family. They care about risk. And right now I had just been flagged. Not by choice, not by mistake, but by a 911 call that never should have happened. I pushed off the counter and walked to my room. No point going back to sleep. Not now. I grabbed my laptop, logged in, started pulling up everything I'd need for the morning, timeline, statement, documentation, clean, clear, and started typing. Because whether my mother understood it or not, she hadn't just called the police. She had just triggered something a lot bigger than a welfare check. And in a few hours, I was going to have to report it myself and set in motion a chain reaction I couldn't control. Door closed behind us. "Have a seat," he said. I sat. He didn't. He stayed standing, reading the paper I handed him. "Local law enforcement conducted a welfare check at 03:15, he said, eyes scanning. "Originated from a 911 call by your mother." "Yes, sir." He looked up. "Controlled." Because by 800, I wasn't going to be explaining feelings. I was going to be explaining facts. And once that process starts, there's no stopping it. No undo button. No, it was just a misunderstanding. The system doesn't work like that. I sat down, opened a blank document. I walked into the security office at 7:42 with the incident report in my hand and zero room for error. No small talk, no hesitation. I checked in, gave my name, and waited. The hallway smelled like coffee and printer toner. Fluorescent lights, quiet, controlled. The kind of place where people don't guess, they verify. "Lieutenant Carter." I stood. "Yes, sir. Come with me." He didn't introduce himself. Didn't need to. "Base security officer. You can tell by the way they move, efficient, already 3 steps ahead." We walked into a small office. "She alleged you were unstable and a danger to yourself." "Yes, sir. Is that accurate?" "No, sir." He held my gaze for a second longer than necessary, then nodded. "All right." That one word didn't mean I was clear. It meant the process had started. He walked to the desk, picked up the phone, dialed a number from memory. "This is security," he said. "I need a precautionary review initiated on Lieutenant Blair Carter. Category behavioral flag tied to civilian contact. Full scope." Pause. "Yes. Financials included." Pause. "Understood." He hung up. Then finally sat across from me. "This is standard procedure," he said. "Given your clearance level, any claim of instability has to be evaluated." "I understand, sir." "Good." He folded his hands. "This is not disciplinary," he continued, "but it is thorough." I nodded once. That word thorough was doing a lot of work. "Is there anything I should know before this begins?" he asked. "No, sir." That wasn't a lie. At least not yet. He studied me for a second, then stood. "You'll report to briefing room 3 at 0900, he said. "An auditor will walk you through the next steps." "Yes, sir." I stood, turned, walked out. No emotion, no reaction, just process. By 08:59, I was sitting in a secure briefing room with no windows and a single table in the center. Laptop in front of me, hands folded, waiting. At 9:02, the door opened. A civilian walked in. Mid-40s, no uniform, no rank. Didn't matter. This was the person who could end my career with a single finding. "Lieutenant Carter," he said, setting a folder down. "I'm Mr. Harlan. I'll be conducting your review." "Yes, sir." He sat across from me, opened the folder. "Let's start simple," he said. "You reported a welfare check initiated by a family member." "Yes, sir." "Any history of mental health concerns?" "No, sir." "Any current treatment?" "No, sir." He nodded, typed something. "All standard so far," he said. Then he paused, flipped a page, and that's when everything changed. His posture shifted, subtle, but there, more focused, more precise. "Lieutenant," he said, "I'm going to ask you a question and I need a direct answer." "Yes, sir." "Are you aware of any financial irregularities associated with your identity?" "No." That was the answer in my head. That was the answer I gave. "No, sir." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached into the folder, pulled out a document, and slid it across the table. "Take a look at that," he said. I picked it up. Commercial lease agreement, downtown Atlanta, high-end retail space, my name at the top, my social security number, my signature at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature, not even close. I stared at it for a second longer than I should have, then flipped the page. Another document. Credit card statement. Balance $27,400, maxed out. Name Blair Carter, another one. $31,200, another. $26,000, total $85,000. I felt it hit. Not panic, not shock, something colder, more precise. I looked up. "I did not open these accounts," I said. "I believe you," he replied. That didn't make it better. That's not the issue, he added. Of course it isn't. He tapped the first document. These were opened 6 months ago, he said. During your deployment window. That mattered. Geographically impossible, provable, clean. Which is why this raises a different concern, he continued. Compromise. That's the word he didn't say, but it was there. If someone has access to your personal information, he said, that creates vulnerability. Yes, sir. And vulnerability, he said, is unacceptable at your clearance level. I nodded. Agreed. Understood. Still processing. Now, he said, flipping another page. Let's talk about the entity tied to these accounts. He turned the document toward me. Business registration. Name Morgan's Little Angels. I didn't move, didn't blink, just read it again. Morgan, of course. Of course it was her. He kept talking. Registered as a boutique daycare center, he said. Premium services, high-end clientele, failed. That part wasn't written, but I knew. I had heard her talk about it months ago. Big plans, big launch, then silence. I never asked why. Didn't care enough. Now I knew. She used my name, I said. It wasn't a question. No, he said. Legally, you used your name. Right. Because on paper I did. I flipped back to the lease. Looked at the signature again. Forgery, clear, sloppy, desperate. They didn't just open accounts, I said slowly. They signed a lease. Yes. They committed fraud. Yes. Silence. Heavy. Controlled. They needed my credit, I said. Yes. They needed my income. Yes. And they expected me not to notice. He didn't answer that. Didn't need to. I leaned back in the chair, and then it clicked. Not just the fraud, the plan, the Sunday dinner, the demand, move in, basement, live there, full-time, access to mail, control. They weren't just trying to get free childcare. They were trying to contain the damage. Keep the letters, hide the defaults, delay the consequences. And if I stayed long enough, maybe make it my problem permanently. I let out a slow breath, not angry, not loud, just clear. They needed me in that house, I said. Mr. Harlan watched me carefully. Why do you think that is? So they could intercept everything I said. Bills, notices, legal correspondence. I looked at him. They were running a fraud operation under my name, and they needed proximity to manage it. He didn't react, didn't confirm. But he didn't disagree either. That's one interpretation, he said. It was the correct one. I set the documents down, carefully, aligned them, then looked at him. What happens next, I asked. He closed the folder. Given the amount and the nature of the fraud, he said, this meets the threshold for federal investigation. There it is. FBI, wire fraud, identity theft, mail fraud, everything. We would refer this to the appropriate agencies, he continued, and your clearance would be placed under temporary review until the matter is resolved. Translation. My career pauses. My life gets dissected because of something I didn't do. I nodded once, understood, accepted. Then I leaned forward. Sir, I said. He waited. I can resolve this, I continued. Quickly, cleanly. He raised an eyebrow. How I know exactly who did it, I said. That was new information. He didn't interrupt. I can provide proof, I added. Location data, timeline, access points, still no interruption. I just need time, I said. How much, he asked. I didn't hesitate. 48 hours. Silence. He studied me, measured the risk, calculated the variables. Why 48, he asked. Because I need them to think they're still in control, I said. That part mattered. A lot. If we move now, I continued, they shut down, destroy evidence, change behavior. He considered that. Then leaned back. You're asking me to delay a federal referral, he said. Yes, sir. That's not a small request. I'm aware. Another pause. Longer this time. Then he nodded. 48 hours, he said. No more. Yes, sir. If this escalates, he added, we take over immediately. Understood. Use your time wisely, Lieutenant. I will. He closed the folder, stood up, meeting over. I gathered the documents, held onto the lease a second longer than the rest. Stared at the signature, fake, obvious, but legally binding until proven otherwise. I walked out of the room with everything I needed. Proof, timeline, motive, and a very clear target. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was a case. And I was about to handle it like one. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text Morgan. I didn't give them anything. No reaction. No warning. Just silence. Because silence makes people comfortable. It makes them think they're winning. And right now, I needed them relaxed. I walked straight from the briefing room to JAG. Judge Advocate General's office sits on the same base, different building. Clean, quiet, everything documented, everything precise. I checked in, gave my name, and waited. A captain met me 10 minutes later. No nonsense. "Lieutenant Carter," he said. "What do you need, affidavit?" I replied. "Identity fraud. I need to establish geographic impossibility." He nodded once. "Already tracking. Come with me." We sat down in a small office. Door closed. No interruptions. "Start from the top," he said. So I did. Deployment dates, location, timeline, the 911 call, the audit, the $85,000. No emotion, just facts. He listened, didn't interrupt, took notes. When I finished, he leaned back. "You have documentation for your deployment?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Orders, travel logs." "Yes, sir." "Good." He turned his monitor toward me. "We're going to draft an affidavit stating you were physically deployed outside the United States during the dates these accounts were opened and the lease was signed," he said. "That creates immediate legal distance. Distance matters, because distance breaks liability." He typed fast, efficient. "This will be notarized and time-stamped," he added. "It becomes official record." I nodded. That's exactly what I needed. 10 minutes later, the document was printed. I read it carefully. Every date correct. Every location accurate. No gaps, no ambiguity. I signed. He notarized. Stamp hit the page with a solid final sound. "Done. That's your foundation," he said. "What else do you have?" "Digital access," I replied. He looked at me. "I can pull the IP logs from the loan applications," I said. "If they used a home network, I can trace it." He didn't smile, but there was a shift. "Respect. Do it," he said. I left JAG and went straight to my office. Logged in, pulled every record I could access legally. Loan applications leave trails. They always do. IP addresses, timestamps, device signatures. Most people don't think about that. They should. I ran the data, filtered it, matched timestamps against my deployment logs. Clean separation. I wasn't even in the country when those forms were submitted. Then I traced the IP location locked in. Residential network. My parents' address. Same router signature across multiple submissions. No attempt to mask it. No VPN. Nothing. They didn't think they needed to. Why would they? It's family. No one checks family. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. This wasn't messy anymore. It was clean. Too clean. Affidavit, IP match, timeline, motive. I had everything. Now I just needed the right moment. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. Unknown number, no wait, not unknown, saved. Mom, of course. I opened the message. "I hope you've had time to think about your behavior." There it is. Same tone, same control. No mention of the police, no apology, just pressure. Another message came in right after. "Morgan is having her gender reveal party this Saturday." Of course she is. Be there at 2 p.m. Not a request, an order. "And we can discuss your move-in date." I read it twice, not because I didn't understand it, because I wanted to make sure I felt nothing. And I didn't. That part surprised me a little. No anger, no frustration, just clarity. They thought the police visit scared me. They thought I folded. They thought silence meant submission. Good. That made this easier. I typed one word. Understood. Sent. 3 seconds later, the typing bubbles appeared. I didn't wait to read it. I locked my phone and set it face down on the desk. They could say whatever they wanted. It didn't matter anymore. From that moment on, everything I did was deliberate, controlled, precise. I froze my credit first. All 3 bureaus, immediate lock, no new accounts, no movement. Then I contacted the banks tied to the accounts, fraud departments, formal reports. I didn't accuse. I presented affidavit, deployment records, IP logs. Each call followed the same pattern, professional, direct. By the end of day 1, every account was flagged. Investigations opened, activity frozen. Then I documented everything, every call, every number, every name, timestamps, case numbers. Because if this escalates, and it will, you don't rely on memory, you rely on records. Day 2, I escalated further, filed formal identity theft reports. Not emotional, not dramatic, just facts. I attached the affidavit. The IP data, the lease. Let the system do what it does best. Process. Then I made one more call. County Sheriff's Department, non-emergency line. I'd like to request a civil standby, I said. Pause on the other end. For when the dispatcher asked. Saturday, I said. 1400 hours. What's the situation? Potential confrontation involving documented identity fraud, I replied. I'll provide full details. Another pause. Then, we can have a unit nearby. That's all I needed. Not a raid, not a show of force, just presence, because presence changes behavior. And I wanted witnesses. Day 3, I did nothing visible. No calls, no messages, no contact. I let them sit in their confidence, let them believe I was coming to apologize, to comply, to move into that basement and quietly absorb the damage they created. Meanwhile, everything was already in motion. Banks, reports, records, law enforcement on standby, every piece in place. All that was left was timing. Saturday morning came fast, too fast for them. Exactly on time for me. I stood in my apartment looking at my dress uniform hanging on the door. Pressed, perfect, sharp lines, clean edges, the kind of uniform that makes people pay attention before you even speak. I put it on slowly, piece by piece, every movement intentional. This wasn't about appearance. It was about message. I wasn't showing up as a daughter, I was showing up as an officer. I checked the time, 12:40, plenty. I picked up the manila envelope from the table, heavy, full. Everything inside it was documented, verified, undeniable. I slid it under my arm, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. No hesitation, no doubt. Because they thought this was a reconciliation. They thought this was control. They thought I was walking into that house to surrender. They had no idea what was actually about to happen. And by the time they figured it out, it would already be too late. I pulled into the driveway at 1:57, right on time. Same house, same hedges, same fake welcome mat. Different mission. I stepped out of the car, adjusted my jacket, and walked toward the backyard like I belonged there. Because I did, just not the way they thought. The gate was already open, music drifting out, laughter, glasses clinking. I stepped through and took it in. Pink and blue balloons everywhere. Archway by the patio. A long table stacked with cupcakes and catered trays. Someone had hired a photographer. Ring light set up in the corner. 40 people easy, extended family, a few neighbors. Morgan's influencer circle. Perfect hair, perfect smiles, phones always in hand. My dad's golf buddies off to the side, already halfway through their drinks. Mimosas, of course. It looked like a celebration. It felt like a performance, and everyone was playing their part. Morgan was in the center of it. Flowing dress, hand on her stomach, laughing a little too loud at something someone said. Turning just enough so the camera could catch her candid moments. She saw me, paused for half a second, then smiled. Not warm, not real, just satisfied. Like everything was going according to plan. Before I could take 2 more steps, my mom was in front of me. Fast, too fast for coincidence. Her hand closed around my arm. Firm, controlling. Come with me, she said under her breath. Not a request. She pulled me a few steps away from the crowd, close enough that no one could hear. Far enough that it looked like a private conversation. She leaned in. I'm glad the police knocked some sense into you, she hissed. There it is, no shame, no hesitation. Just confirmation. You really had us worried, she added, voice soft now, like she was playing concerned parent for an invisible audience. I looked at her, calm, neutral. I'm fine, I said. She tightened her grip on my arm. Good, she said. Then don't ruin this. Her eyes flicked toward the crowd. Smile, she said quietly. Be pleasant. And after the cake, you're going to stand up and tell everyone you've decided to take a leave of absence. I didn't respond. She kept going. You'll say you want to support your sister, she added. That family comes first. We'll discuss your move-in date later. Of course we will. I let a second pass, then I gently pulled my arm free. I heard you, I said. That was enough for her. She stepped back satisfied, because she thought I was agreeing. She always does. I walked past her and into the crowd. People noticed. Not because of me, because of the uniform. It does that. You don't have to say anything. People fill in the blanks themselves. Wow, look at you, someone said as I passed. Thank you, I replied. Short, polite, done. I didn't stop moving, didn't engage, didn't get pulled into small talk. I took a position near the edge of the patio. Clear line of sight, whole yard visible. Morgan's voice cut through the noise a few seconds later. Loud, deliberate. I swear finding reliable help these days is impossible, she said, to a group of women standing around her. Of course she did. Like you think people would want to work with a growing brand, she continued. But no one has loyalty anymore. One of her friends nodded like that made sense. That's so true, she said. I almost laughed. Morgan glanced at me again, made sure I could hear, then smiled at her friends like she hadn't just said it. Performance, always. I stayed where I was, watched, listened, waited. Because timing matters. About 20 minutes later, my dad stepped forward. Arthur. He picked up a glass and tapped it with a fork. All right, everyone, he said, raising his voice just enough. Can I get your attention for a moment? The crowd shifted. People turned. Phones came up. Of course they did. He smiled, easy, confident, the version of him everyone else gets. I just want to say how proud I am of Morgan, he started. Morgan lowered her eyes slightly. Modest, practiced. She's made a big decision recently, he continued. One that shows real commitment to her family. Here we go, she's stepping away from her daycare business, he said, to focus full-time on being a mother. There it is, the rewrite. The failure turned into a sacrifice. The crowd responded right on cue. A few nods, some soft applause. Morgan smiled like she didn't expect it, like she wasn't counting on it. She's always been strong, my dad added. Always put others first. I kept my face neutral, didn't react, didn't correct. Not yet, he raised his glass. To Morgan, he said. To Morgan, the crowd echoed. Glasses clinked, smiles all around. Then my mom stepped forward. Of course she did. She didn't need to ask for the floor. She just took it. And we are so blessed, she said, her voice carrying across the yard, that Blair has finally decided to step up and support her sister during this exciting time. There it is, out loud, public, final. Every head turned toward me, 40 pairs of eyes, waiting, expecting, assuming. She's agreed to put her little military hobby on hold. My mom continued smiling like this was a gift and move in to help full-time with the kids. The words hung in the air for a second. Then the applause started, polite, supportive, automatic. People clapped because that's what you do when someone announces something that sounds generous. They didn't know, they didn't need to, not yet. I stood there, still, no smile, no nod, no performance. The applause rolled through the yard like a wave, and then slowly started to fade, because people notice when you don't react the way they expect. Silence crept back in, not complete, but enough. I took one step forward, then another, into the center, where they wanted me, where they thought they had control. My mom was watching me closely now, waiting, confident. Morgan too. Hands folded, smile ready, camera already pointed in my direction. Of course it was. I reached into my uniform jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out the thick manila envelope, held it in my hand, let everyone see it. The weight of it shifted the air in the yard, subtle but real, because something about it didn't fit the moment, didn't match the script. I looked around once, made eye contact with a few people, let the silence stretch just a little longer. Then I stepped forward to the table and dropped the envelope down. I let the silence sit for one more second, then stepped forward. I am not moving in, I said, not loud, just clear. It cut straight through the last few claps still hanging in the air. And I am not putting my career on hold, I added. A few people shifted, confused, unsure if this was part of the speech or not. I didn't look at them. I looked at my mother, then at Morgan. But I did bring a gift for the baby. I lifted the envelope slightly, then dropped it onto the gift table. It hit with a heavy, solid thud. Not loud, but enough. Enough to pull attention. Enough to change the tone. My mom's smile didn't disappear right away. It tightened, like she wasn't sure what she was looking at yet. What is this? She asked, still trying to keep her voice light. I turned to the crowd. Inside that folder, I said, are forged commercial lease agreements and 3 maxed-out business credit cards totaling $85,000. No reaction yet. They were still catching up. All opened under my name, I continued while I was deployed overseas. Now it landed. You could feel it, the shift, like someone turned the volume down on the entire yard. No music, no laughter, just silence. Morgan's smile dropped. Fast, too fast to hide. What are you talking about? She said a little too quickly. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. My mom stepped forward instead. Sharp, aggressive. This is not the time for your nonsense, she snapped. There it is, no denial, just control. You're embarrassing yourself, she added louder now so everyone could hear. I stayed where I was, calm, still. This is not nonsense, I said. It's documentation. I tapped the envelope once. Signed lease for a commercial property in Atlanta, I continued. Registered under my social security number, 3 business credit cards, all maxed out, all in default. I looked at Morgan. You want to explain that, I asked. Her face went pale. Not nervous, not defensive, pale, like she already knew there was no way out. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Too rehearsed, too clean. My mom stepped in front of her. You need to stop, she said. Right now. Her voice had changed. Less polished. More urgent. This is exactly what I told the police, she said, turning to the crowd. She's not stable. She just got back from deployment and she's having some kind of episode. There it is. The play. Use the badge. Use concern. Turn the narrative. She needs help, my mom added. This isn't her. A few people looked at me differently now. Not convinced, but uncertain. That's all she needed. Doubt. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone. You're right, I said. Let's talk about what's real. I unlocked it, scrolled, found it, voicemail, 6 months old. I hit play. Morgan's voice came through the speaker, clear, unfiltered. Hey Blair, it's me. Quick thing, I'm filling out some paperwork for the daycare stuff, and they need a social for a background check if you're going to be listed as an emergency contact. Can you text me yours when you get a second? It'll just make everything easier. Silence. Not the kind you get when people are thinking. The kind you get when people understand. Fully, completely, in one moment. The lie broke, right there, in front of everyone. Morgan didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even try, because there was nothing left to say. My mom did. Of course she did. That proves nothing, she snapped. She could have taken that out of context. You don't know what she... Context, I said. I stepped closer. Just enough. Context is you called the police and told them I was suicidal because I wouldn't babysit, I said. Her mouth opened. Closed. No words. Context is I've been deployed for 6 months, I continued. And during that time, someone used my identity to open accounts and sign a lease for a business I've never been involved in. I let that sit. Then I looked at the crowd again. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said. It's fraud. No one clapped this time. No one smiled. Phones were still up. But now they weren't recording a celebration. They were recording a collapse. Morgan finally spoke. Soft. Barely there. I didn't mean for it to... Don't I cut in? She stopped. Good. My mom tried again. Different angle this time. Desperation creeping in. This is a family matter, she said. We can handle this privately. No, you can't. Not anymore. You already made it public, I said. You just didn't expect this part. Her eyes flicked to the envelope, then back to me, calculating, still trying to find a way out. There's been a misunderstanding, she said louder now, trying to regain control of the room. Blair is under a lot of stress. We're going to take care of this, no, I said. Simple, final. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the top document, held it up. Lease agreement, I said, signed in my name. Dated while I was overseas. Another paper. Credit statements I added. Balances maxed. Payments missed. I didn't throw them, didn't wave them around. Just held them steady. Enough for people close to see. Enough for the rest to understand. Morgan looked like she might pass out. My mom looked like she might explode. Neither of them were in control anymore, and they knew it. The silence stretched, long, uncomfortable, permanent. And then gravel, crunching, loud, from the driveway, every head turned. Not because they wanted to, because it cut through everything. Conversation, tension, control, just gone. I didn't look surprised. I knew exactly what that sound meant. The real guest had arrived. The crunch of gravel got louder, engines idling, doors opening. I didn't turn right away. I didn't need to. I already knew the timing. I had given it to them. Excuse me, a voice called from the side gate. Firm, neutral, professional. Now I turned. 2 county sheriff's deputies stepped into the backyard. Uniforms clean, posture steady, eyes already scanning the crowd. Behind them, a man in a suit. No badge on his chest. Didn't need one. He carried it in his tone. Everything in the yard shifted again. Guests stepped back without being told. Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones lowered, then slowly came back up. My mom moved first. Of course she did. She walked straight toward them, smile snapping back into place like a reflex. "Oh, officers," she said, light and warm, like this was just another part of the party. "There must be some mistake." The deputies didn't respond. The man in the suit stepped forward instead. Calm, direct. "No mistake, ma'am," he said. His eyes moved past her, landed on Morgan, then back to my mom. "Valerie Carter," he asked. Her smile tightened. "Yes," she said, "but this is really just a family," and Morgan. "Carter," he continued. Morgan didn't answer. She just stared at him, frozen. He nodded once like that was enough. "I'm Special Agent Collins with the United States Postal Inspection Service," he said. That name hit differently. Postal, mail fraud, federal. "This isn't a family matter," he added. My mom tried again, louder this time, more urgent. "Of course it is," she said. "There's been a misunderstanding. My daughter is under a lot of stress. She's saying things that, ma'am," one of the deputies cut in. Not loud, but final. She stopped. Agent Collins didn't blink. "You are both being investigated for aggravated identity theft and federal wire fraud," he said. Clear, clean, no emotion, just facts. The words landed like a weight, heavy, unavoidable. Someone in the crowd gasped. Another person whispered something I didn't catch. Morgan shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "No, that's not—" "It is," he replied. He held out a folder. Documents, real ones, not mine, official, based on financial records, signed lease agreements, and electronic submission data tied to your residence. He continued. "We have probable cause to proceed." My mom stepped closer, trying to regain control, trying to shrink the situation back down to something she could manage. "This is insane," she said. "You can't just walk in here and weaken," the second deputy said. Simple, flat, done. The yard was completely silent now. No music, no movement. Just people watching something they didn't sign up for. Morgan's breathing got louder, faster, shallow. Her eyes darted between my mom, the agent, the deputies, looking for an exit. There wasn't one. "This is your fault," my mom said, suddenly turning on me, sharp, desperate. "You did this," she added. "You brought this here." I didn't respond, didn't move, didn't give her anything. Agent Collins stepped slightly to the side. "Positioning." "Ma'am," he said. Looking at my mom again, "I'm going to need you to stay where you are." She didn't listen. She never does. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "We are not criminals. This is my home. You need to leave." No one moved. No one left. Morgan made a sound, small, broken, then louder. "It wasn't me," she said. Her voice cracked. Everyone heard it. "It wasn't my idea," she said again. There it is, the shift, the fracture. She turned to my mom, eyes wide, panicked. "It was her," Morgan said, pointing. "Mom told me to do it." The entire yard froze. No one even pretended not to hear that. My mom's face changed. Not shock, not guilt, rage, pure, uncontrolled rage. "What are you doing?" she hissed at Morgan. "You said it would be fine," Morgan shot back. "You said Blair would never find out." "I never said that," my mom snapped. "You did," Morgan shouted now. "You said use her name because she has government income and good credit." "Stop talking," my mom said, stepping closer. But Morgan didn't stop. "She said it would be easy." Morgan continued, voice rising, that it wasn't a big deal. The slap came fast, sharp, loud. It cut through everything. Morgan's head snapped to the side. A few people gasped. Phones lifted higher, because now it wasn't just fraud. Now it was physical. The deputies moved instantly, no hesitation. One grabbed my mom's arm, the other stepped between her and Morgan. "Ma'am, turn around," the first deputy said. My mom pulled back. "Don't touch me," she snapped. Too late. They didn't argue, didn't negotiate. They turned her around and cuffed her. Metal clicked. Final, real. She kept talking, still trying to control something that was already gone. "This is unbelievable," she said. "You're arresting me over a misunderstanding assault," the deputy corrected. "And we're not done here." Morgan was crying now. Not loud, not dramatic, just broken. The agent stepped toward her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us for questioning," he said. She didn't resist, didn't argue. She just nodded, slow, defeated. The crowd parted as they walked them both toward the driveway. No one stopped them. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to say. The perfect party was gone, completely. Pink and blue balloons swaying in the light breeze like nothing happened. Music still playing quietly from a speaker, no one bothered to turn off. And in the middle of it, 2 patrol cars, lights flashing, doors open. My mom was placed into the back seat first, still talking, still blaming, still refusing to accept it. Morgan followed, quieter, eyes down, hands shaking. The doors shut, solid, final. The engine started. The lights reflected off everything, the balloons, the windows, the faces of people who would be talking about this for months. The cruisers pulled away slowly, no sirens. They didn't need them. The damage was already done. I stood where I was. Didn't move, didn't follow, didn't say a word, because my part in this was finished. The cars disappeared down the street, and just like that, it was over. I turned back toward the yard. Most people were already leaving, quietly, quickly, avoiding eye contact, trying to process what they just witnessed. Only one person hadn't moved. My dad, Arthur. He stood near the table, glass still in his hand, untouched. He looked at me, not angry, not defensive, just lost. Like he didn't recognize anything that had just happened. Or maybe he finally did. And he didn't know what to do with it. We stood there for a second. No words. No bridge left to cross, just distance, the kind you don't come back from. And as the last of the flashing lights faded from the street, he was left standing alone in his own backyard, staring at the daughter he had never bothered to protect. I didn't go back inside the house. There was nothing left in there for me. I walked to my car, got in, and sat for a second with my hands on the wheel. No shaking, no adrenaline crash, just quiet. The kind of quiet you get when something is finally finished. Then I drove home. The next few weeks weren't dramatic. They were precise. Paperwork, calls, statements, verifications. That's how real consequences work. Not loud, just steady. The banks moved first. Fraud investigations closed fast once they saw the affidavit, the deployment records, and the IP logs. Every account tied to my name was flagged as fraudulent. Balances frozen, then wiped. $85,000, gone. Like it was never mine to begin with, because it wasn't. My credit report corrected itself over the next 2 cycles. Every mark removed. Every line item cleaned. It took time, but it was clean. That part mattered. On the legal side, it moved slower. But it moved. Valerie was charged, not with everything she deserved, but enough. False police report. Assault. Contributing to identity fraud. She avoided jail, probation instead. Heavy fines, restitution orders tied to the fraud. Monthly payments she couldn't ignore. Court dates she couldn't control. That kind of pressure breaks people differently, quietly. Morgan's situation didn't hold up much better. Her husband found out everything, not from her, from the investigation. Turns out hiding $85,000 in debt isn't something you explain away over dinner. He filed for divorce within the month. Fast, clean, no second chances. He took primary custody of the kids, not out of revenge, out of stability. And for once, someone in that situation made the right call. Morgan didn't fight it. She didn't have the leverage, or the energy, or the credibility. Everything she built, her brand, her business, her image, it collapsed in a matter of weeks. Not because of me, because it was never real to begin with. I stayed out of it, completely. No court appearances unless required. No statements beyond what was necessary. No contact. That part was easy. The hard part came later, when my phone rang one evening. Unknown number, I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Blair, he said. My dad, Arthur. I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. I know things got out of hand, he started. Out of hand. That's what we're calling it. I've been thinking, he continued. And maybe we can resolve this. As a family. There it is. The word they always come back to. Family, like it fixes things. Like it erases actions. You should consider dropping the charges, he said. I closed my eyes for a second. Not because I was emotional. Because I wanted to make sure I said this right. For the sake of the family, he added. Of course. I let a beat pass, then I spoke. Mom called the police to try to destroy my career, I said. He didn't interrupt. She reported me as suicidal, I continued. Over babysitting. Silence on the other end. She triggered a federal audit, I said. That uncovered fraud in my name. Another pause. Longer this time. She set the house on fire, Dad, I said. My voice stayed steady. No anger, no edge, just truth. I just refused to burn with it. Nothing came back. No argument, no defense, because there wasn't one. After a few seconds, he tried again. Soft. Blair. I didn't let him finish. I'm done, I said. And I meant it, not just with the conversation, with all of it. I ended the call, blocked the number, didn't think about it again. A month later, I got called into my commanding officer's office. Different tone this time. Not review, not concern, recognition. Lieutenant Carter, he said, sliding a document across the desk. Your clearance review is complete. I picked it up, read it, clear, no flags, no concerns. Full reinstatement. He leaned back. Given how you handled the situation, he added, we've also put in a recommendation. I looked up. For promotion, he said. That part I didn't expect. Not because I didn't earn it, because I wasn't thinking about it. I nodded once. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, he said. You kept your composure, protected your position, and handled a compromised situation without escalating it emotionally. He paused. That's exactly what we look for. Fair enough. A few weeks later, it was official. Captain, new rank, new responsibilities. Same standards. I moved into a different unit shortly after. Better access, higher clearance, more work. Exactly where I wanted to be. That night I sat in my apartment, quiet, secure, no noise, no tension, no one trying to control anything. Just me. I leaned back on the couch and looked around. Everything in that space was mine. Earned, protected, not taken, not manipulated, not borrowed under false names. Real. And that matters more than people think. I thought about that night. The dinner, the police, the party, all of it. And how fast things can shift when you stop playing along. They thought the badge would scare me into submission. They forgot I wear one too. Let me say something before this ends. If someone in your family uses guilt, manipulation, or even authority to push you into a corner, let them. Don't fight the corner, learn how to use it. Because corners force clarity, they show you exactly who people are and what they're willing to do to control you. Once you see that clearly, you stop negotiating, you stop explaining, you act, clean, direct, final. If you've ever had to draw a line like that with your own family, I want to hear it. Drop a comment. And if you want more stories like this, real situations, real consequences, go ahead and subscribe. Because at the end of the day, your peace is worth protecting. I didn't understand boundaries the way I thought I did. I used to think a boundary was something you said once clearly and people respected it. You explain yourself, you stay calm, you're reasonable, and that should be enough. It's not. Because the kind of people who ignore your boundaries aren't confused. They understand exactly what you're saying. They just don't agree with it. And when they don't agree, they don't stop. They escalate. That's what I missed for a long time. Looking back, the problem didn't start at that Sunday dinner. It didn't start when my mom told me to move into Morgan's basement. It didn't even start when she called the police. It started years earlier. Every time I said yes when I meant no. Every time I let something slide because it was easier. Every time I told myself, it's just family. That's how it builds. Slow, quiet, normal. Until one day you realize you're not making your own decisions anymore, you're reacting to theirs. That dinner was just the moment it became obvious. Because when my mom pointed at me and said I was going to give up my career to raise someone else's kids, she didn't hesitate. She didn't ask. She didn't negotiate. She assumed. That kind of confidence doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a pattern that's been working for a long time. They saw me as a resource, something to be used, something to be redirected when needed. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. That's when boundaries stop being a conversation. They become a decision. Here's the part I wish someone had told me earlier. And that's the part people don't talk about. Toxic family dynamics don't always look like chaos. They don't always involve screaming or obvious abuse. A lot of the time, it's quiet, it's subtle, it's built on expectation. You're the responsible one. You don't have kids, so you have more time. Family helps family. On the surface, that sounds reasonable, until you realize it only goes one direction. You give, they take. And if you stop giving suddenly, you're the problem. That's the shift. That's the moment everything flips. I remember standing there at that table listening to my mom talk about my career like it was a hobby, like it was optional, like it was something I could pause because it was inconvenient for them. And what hit me wasn't anger. It was clarity. They didn't see me as an individual. You don't need people to agree with your boundary for it to be valid. You don't need their approval. You don't even need their understanding. Because the moment your boundary depends on their reaction, it's not a boundary anymore. It's a negotiation. And negotiations can be worn down. Boundaries can't. That's why I stopped explaining. That's why I didn't argue that night. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to convince them. I just stood up and left. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation that was never built for you to win. Now here's where most people get stuck. They think if they just explain it better, say it differently, or stay calm long enough, the other person will finally understand. But people who benefit from crossing your boundaries don't want to understand you. They want access to your time, your energy, your decisions. And once you see that everything changes, you stop trying to be clear. You start being firm. You stop trying to be liked. You start being respected. And yes, that comes with a cost. Because when you stop playing your role in someone else's system, they don't thank you. They push back. Hard. That's what the 911 call was. It wasn't concern. It wasn't fear. It was control. Just a different method. Because when emotional pressure didn't work, she switched to authority. She tried to use the system to force me back into position. And that's something else I learned the hard way. If someone is willing to escalate that far just to maintain control over you, that's not a misunderstanding. That's intent. And intent matters. So here's the real lesson. Boundaries aren't about telling people what they can't do. They're about deciding what you will and won't tolerate and then acting accordingly, not reacting, acting. There's a difference. Reacting is emotional, immediate, usually loud. Acting is controlled, deliberate, quiet. That's why I went silent, not because I was scared. Because I was done playing their version of the situation. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's space, and sometimes it's the moment you stop giving someone access to you. If you're watching this and something feels familiar, pay attention to that. Because most people don't realize they're being pushed until they're already exhausted. If you feel like you're always the one adjusting, always the one explaining, always the one giving in just to keep things calm, that's not balance. That's pressure, and pressure doesn't go away on its own. You have to decide to step out of it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but clearly, because the moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you start taking your power back. I used to think pressure from family was normal, not healthy, not fair, but normal, something you just deal with, something you tolerate because that's what people do. You keep the peace, you don't make things worse, you don't blow things up. That's what I told myself for years. And if I'm being honest, that mindset is exactly what allowed everything to go as far as it did. Because pressure doesn't stay the same. It grows, slow at first, then all at once. The problem is most people don't recognize it early. They wait until it becomes a crisis, like I did. So let me break this down in a way I wish someone had done for me. Because what happened to me didn't start with fraud. It didn't start with police. It started with patterns, small ones, easy to ignore. You know the kind. You're the one they call when something goes wrong. You're the one expected to fix things. You're the one who gets labeled strong, which really just means people assume you can handle more. And every time you step in, it reinforces the same idea: you'll figure it out. You'll adjust. You'll carry it. Until one day you realize no one is asking if you want to. They're just assuming you will. That's where it shifts from support to pressure. And pressure doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as responsibility, as loyalty, as love. Family helps family. That line sounds good until you realize it only applies to you. So here's the first thing you need to understand. Not every request is reasonable just because it comes from family. And not every need is your responsibility to solve. That might sound obvious, but it doesn't feel obvious when you're in it, because pressure isn't just external. It's internal too. Guilt, doubt, that voice in your head saying, maybe I should just do it. That voice is powerful. And if you don't check it, it will override your judgment. That's why reacting in the moment almost never works. Because in the moment, you're emotional. You want to fix things. You want to calm things down. You want to avoid conflict. And that's exactly what people who apply pressure are counting on. They don't need you to agree. They just need you to hesitate. Because hesitation is where they step in and take control. So instead of reacting, you need to slow it down. Create space. That's what I did after the police showed up. I didn't call anyone. I didn't argue. I didn't try to clear things up. I stepped back. And that's when I saw everything clearly. So if you're dealing with pressure like this, here's what actually works. First, reduce your reaction. You don't have to answer immediately. You don't have to respond emotionally. Silence is not weakness, it's control. Second, observe patterns. Not what people say, what they do. Do they respect your limits, or do they push until you give in? Do they take responsibility, or do they redirect everything back onto you? Patterns tell the truth faster than words ever will. Third, document. And I know that sounds extreme, but it's not, it's practical. Because once things cross a certain line, emotions don't matter anymore. Facts do, records do, proof does. I didn't collect evidence because I wanted revenge. I did it because I needed protection. There's a difference. And most people don't realize that until it's too late. Another mistake people make is over-explaining, trying to justify their decisions, trying to make the other person understand. Let me be clear about this. If someone is invested in controlling you, understanding you is not their goal. Access is. Access to your time, your decisions, your energy. So the more you explain, the more material you give them to work with. That's why short, clear responses are more effective. Not rude, not aggressive, just final. And here's the part that no one prepares you for. When you start setting real boundaries, people don't react well. They push back. They guilt you. They might even try to turn others against you because you're no longer playing your role. And when the system stops working, the system reacts. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've disrupted something that benefited them. You will feel uncomfortable. You might even feel like you're the problem. That's normal. But discomfort is not the same as being wrong. It's just unfamiliar. It's the feeling of doing something different, something that doesn't fit the pattern they're used to. And that's exactly the point. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting the same result. Pressure, expectation, control. So at some point you have to decide. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but clearly. What are you willing to tolerate and what are you not? And once you decide that you stick to it, not perfectly, but consistently, because consistency is what turns a boundary into something real. Looking back, I didn't change everything overnight. I changed one thing. I stopped negotiating with people who had no intention of respecting me. And that one shift changed everything. Because once you stop trying to manage other people's expectations, you finally start managing your own life. I used to think cutting someone off meant failure. Like I didn't try hard enough. Like I gave up too early. Like I should have been more patient, more understanding, more flexible. That's what I was taught. Family is forever. You work things out, you don't walk away. Sounds good. Until you're the only one doing the work. That's the part no one says out loud. Some relationships don't break because people stop caring. They break because one person never had to care in the first place. They just had access, and access is not the same as connection. I didn't wake up one day and decide to cut my family off. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't impulsive. It was a series of moments where I realized nothing was changing. Not the expectations, not the pressure, not the way they saw me, even after everything that happened. Even after the police, even after the investigation, even after the truth was out in the open, my dad still called me and said, "Do it for the family." That's when it clicked. Nothing about that situation was going to fix itself, because the system was still the same, the roles were still the same. They just wanted me to step back into mine. And that's when you have to ask yourself a hard question. Not, do I love them? That's easy. The real question is this relationship healthy for me? And if the answer is no, then the next question is even harder. What am I going to do about it? Because knowing something is wrong doesn't change anything. Action does. Here's the truth most people avoid. You cannot heal a relationship by sacrificing yourself. You can't fix someone else's behavior by tolerating it longer. And you can't build something healthy on a foundation that only works when you stay small. That's not compromise. That's erosion. Slow, quiet erosion of your time, your energy, your identity. And it doesn't stop until you stop it. That's why cutting ties feels so heavy. Not because it's wrong, because it goes against everything you've been told. You're told loyalty matters. You're told family comes first. You're told to forgive. And none of that is wrong, but it only works when it goes both ways. Loyalty without respect isn't loyalty. It's control. Forgiveness without accountability isn't healing. It's permission. And family without boundaries. That's just access with a title. So when I blocked my dad's number, it wasn't about anger. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. I understood something I hadn't before. Staying connected to people who don't respect your boundaries will always cost you more than walking away. Always. And yes, it feels quiet afterward. Different. You don't get the noise anymore. The constant calls, the expectations, the pressure. At first, that silence can feel uncomfortable, like something is missing, but give it time. That silence becomes space. And space is where you rebuild. You start thinking clearly again, making decisions without second-guessing yourself, moving without needing approval. That's what freedom actually feels like. Not dramatic, not loud. Just steady. Now let me be clear about something. Cutting ties is not always the first step, and it's not always the only option. But it is sometimes the necessary one, especially when every other option has been exhausted, especially when staying means continuing the same cycle. And if you're in that position, you don't need permission. You don't need validation from the people who are benefiting from your silence. You just need honesty with yourself about what this is costing you. Because everything costs something. Staying costs you. Leaving costs you. The question is which cost you're willing to live with. For me, the answer became obvious. I wasn't willing to trade my career, my stability, and my identity just to keep a relationship that only worked when I gave up all three. So I didn't. I stepped out of it, completely. And once I did, something shifted. Not around me, inside me. I stopped explaining, stopped justifying, stopped shrinking. And the more I did that, the clearer everything became. I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I stopped playing a game that was never designed for me to win in the first place. That's the part I want you to take with you. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who benefit from you doubting it. You don't have to stay in situations that only work when you sacrifice yourself. And you don't have to wait until everything falls apart before you decide enough is enough. Peace isn't something people give you, it's something you protect. And sometimes protecting it means making decisions that other people won't understand. That's okay. They're not the ones living your life. You are. So if this story hit you in a way that felt personal, pay attention to that. Because that feeling is usually pointing to something real, something you've been ignoring, something you've been tolerating. And maybe it's time to look at it differently. If you've ever had to set boundaries with someone who didn't respect them, drop a comment and share your experience. And if you want more stories like this, revenge stories, family drama, make sure you subscribe. Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't with strangers. They're with the people who think they're entitled to your life. And the moment you take that control back, everything changes.